Well, life has its ups and downs, a fact that I'm no stranger to, but I'm not the only one who knows that a little too well. Just a couple of weeks ago, we brought you the great news that Lyle Shelton had won his defamation case against a couple of drag queens that were offended or felt defamed by things that he'd said about them and whether or not drag queens are good role models for children. Cue the popcorn, cue the party. Yay, what a great win for human rights. Well, that's what we thought. And then very late on the Friday night that was the cutoff for them to lodge an appeal, sure enough, well, don't let me tell you. Lyle Shelton, welcome back to the Aussie Wire. What happened late on a Friday night?
Yeah, thanks, Topher. Thanks for having us and helping shine a light on this.
Mm.
Leah, late Friday night, when we thought we were in the clear, a email came through from the LGBTIQ legal service in West End in Brisbane, taxpayer-funded legal service that's acting on behalf of two drag queens, Dwayne Hill and Johnny Valkyrie, and they've decided to appeal the dismissal of their vilification case against me through the tribunal. So they're asking for leave to appeal. And I guess that'll be assessed in due course. They effectively want a different member of QCAT to hear their grievance. They didn't like the decision they got last time, so they're asking QCAT for another go with a different member or judge presiding.
Well, we discussed last time how the punishment, the process itself really is the punishment.
Yeah.
And you make the point there, these people really, as far as I'm aware, have no real skin in the game. There's not a lot of downside to them if they lose. We have these sort of activist, taxpayer-funded legal funds. What has your counsel said so far? Obviously, without giving anything away, are you concerned that they may be given leave to appeal? Is that likely?
It's hard to know. Look, we just looked at the documents yesterday. I've consulted with my lawyers at the Human Rights Law Alliance in Canberra. They have done a terrific job. I guess it'll come down to whether or not the appeal is seen to have merit. There'll be some sort of assessment process by an appeals tribunal. So we'll just have to wait. It's just more uncertainty, but it is the prospect potentially, if leave is granted for an appeal of more years of litigation. It's already taken us 3 years to get to the stage where the claim was dismissed, 3 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars in a 3-day trial. These people are obviously determined to actually stop discussion about the harms to children of drag queen story time, of putting gender fluid role models and sexualized role models in front of children. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be something that is controversial well, it is controversial, but there should be nothing wrong with discussing this in public, but they cannot abide having this discussion, and hence they have to go the legal route to shut it down.
I've spent a long time opposed to the idea of a Bill of Rights. I think they're often deeply flawed documents, and if you look at the US Bill of Rights, well, there's a few clauses, a few amendments in there, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, that are respected. The vast majority are not. But I have to say situations like yours tend to push me in the other direction, and I ask the question, do we need a Bill of Rights? Do we need to actually enshrine the right to freedom of speech so that you don't have to defend yourself with years and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of legal proceedings? Have you had discussions with the HRLA on that?
I haven't talked to them about that, but like you, Topher, I've been very much opposed to a bill or charter of rights. In fact, when I was working at Australian Christian Lobby about 15 years ago, we were part of a big campaign which defeated the then Rudd government's attempts to bring in a charter of rights. It was one of the few campaigns that we actually won. We've lost most things in the culture wars. And that's because we had people like Bob Carr and others, a lot of senior Labor figures opposed it as well. I'm opposed to it because it does allow judges to essentially exercise undue control over the parliamentary process. It's a big discussion, but I'm against it. We already have an applied right to political communication in the Constitution that has been tested on more than one occasion by the High Court. If necessary, we will go all the way to the High Court with this. I don't want to, but this is such an important thing. But I just think the media and the politicians need to do their job. If the average Australian knew that people like me could be dragged through a legal process because of our flawed regime of anti-discrimination laws, which compel you to go before a human rights commission, then it gets escalated to a tribunal and drags on and on for 3 years simply because you've exercised the right of free speech. This doesn't pass the pub test. And unfortunately, our politicians and our media class are beholden to the LGBTIQA plus political movement. They have no courage in the face of this movement, and they don't scrutinise their claims or their agenda. And we're now seeing the consequences of their agenda playing out in the way that it's affecting little children and the way that it's affecting freedom of speech, the way that it's affecting women's and girls' rights.
Well, as they say, in our current legal system, you can have all the justice you can afford. It's all very well and good to have a legal system in which you have this implied right to political communication. But if you don't have a half a decade or more of your life, and well, by the time you get to the High Court, a couple of $1 million, well, you may as well not have that right at all. Are there other precedents that have already been set that you can rely on? Or if this were to go all the way to the High Court, would you be the trailblazer trying to set that precedent on behalf of others?
Look, I'm not the only one engaged in this sort of lawfare being waged against individuals like me. There's a whole slew of courageous women as well who have more recently been embroiled. People like Sal Grover, she's already in the federal court. This is the woman who founded the women's only app Giggle and is being sued by a man who identifies as a woman by the name of Tickle and Giggle case. It's got a funny rhyme to it, but she's willing to go to the High Court. We certainly are. Kirralie Smith is in trouble as well. I spoke last week to Councillor Louise Elliott from the Hobart City Council. She's been put on similar vilification charges and hauled before the Equal Opportunities Commission in Tasmania. Very similar process to what I went through. So there's a number of people going through this. I think we've got to see these cases get public attention, and I think the best thing is not a charter of rights, not giving judges more control, but the democracy doing its job. And unfortunately, we've got a media class, as I said, who apart from people like yourself at the Aussie Wire and alternative media, that do not scrutinise the craziness that's going on. So, and a lack of courage amongst our political class. If we can solve those problems, we could turn this around. But I think it's going to take a while, and it's going to take a bit of persistence and probably a bit more legal action.
Well, you mentioned Kirralie Smith. There was, if my memory serves me correctly, just yesterday, another Why Can't Women Talk About Sex event held at Parliament House. Yep. I know it was supported by a number of good senators there. There are certainly good people in the political sphere and in the cultural sphere who are taking up this fight. Lyle, before I let you go, I'm just going to put your website up here. This is the article that you've just put up on your website here about the drag queen appeal and more years of litigation await. That is an unfortunately accurate headline there. How can people find out more about you? How can people follow you and potentially support you as you take up this fight?
Yeah, really appreciate that, Topher. Look, if people want to follow this journey and receive updates about the case and where it's going, they can go to lyleshelton.com.au. I've got a website there. You can sign up and you'll receive information from me.
Well, Lyle Shelton, National President of the Family First Party and champion of human rights, I wish you all the very best going forward. I hope that this appeal is knocked on the head and you don't have to go through it, but if you do, I wish you Godspeed, all the courage and support in the world and every success. Lyle, thanks for coming on the Aussie Wire.
Thank you so much, Topher. Appreciate it.